Mayor Vico is here. Sorry. Just setting up the Facebook Live. Sorry, yeah. Give me a couple of minutes.
Streaming live on Facebook.
I think we're live already.
We are? We are? Okay. Okay. All right. Cool. Okay then. Wow. Blockbuster.
You're live.
Wait lang. Wait lang ah.
Parang
Alright.
ang gaganda at ang gagwapo niyo porque si Mayor yun.
Guys, just
Wait
to
lang.
remind you that we are now live on Facebook, so so that you're all aware that it's all recorded and people can see it. So just a heads up.
We are. Okay.
Yan.
All right. Cool.
On Facebook, so so that you're all aware that it's all recorded.
We are. Okay.
Barnes, later you might have to mute yourself. So
All right. I'm muting myself now.
It's all recorded.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mayor.
Hi, Barnaby, di ba? Barnaby.
Yes. Hi, Mayor.
Yeah.
Hi. Pero Mayor Vico, it's going to be Jam of Al Jazeera who's going to be moderating this this forum.
Hi,
Okay.
Mayor. Good morning.
Your jam. Okay, hi.
Yeah,
Nice.
yan, yung formal pumalan dyan.
We met at the British Ambassador's
Right,
dinner.
right. Yeah, I remember you were sitting to my right in front. Yeah.
Very good. Yes, definitely. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us. This is really a good opportunity to ask you a lot of questions, and everyone is so eager to hear from you. Just to let you know that we have been doing this since the lockdown. We've been moving our forums online, and the Foreign Correspondents Association of the Philippines has also allowed members of the local press and other observers to join. But only members of the foreign press, and if there's time, the local press are allowed to ask questions. So
Okay.
you are also live on the FOCAP page, and we have about 32 participants already. So
Okay.
yeah,
We're live on Facebook now. Is that correct?
yeah, you're live on their Facebook page and also on Zoom. You can also share that if you like.
Okay.
Okay. So there. So shall we get started?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Would you like to have an opening statement, or you want to get going with the questions already?
I'm all good and ready.
Okay, great. All right. Good morning, everyone, for joining us at our 9th Foreign Correspondents Association of the Philippines Forum on Zoom. And as you know, we've been innovating, trying to find ways to get the stories as much as possible, despite this lockdown, despite the so-called social distancing. We have no less than Mayor Vico Sotto, who has broken the 27-year reign of the Eusebios in Pasig, and who has basically been seen as a breath of fresh air in the murky world of politics. And of course, Mayor, your first initial big test as mayor is this pandemic. Thank you for talking to us, and thank you for being on our FOCAP Zoom.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll throw in the first question. Barnes, can I do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jam. Yeah.
Mayor,
Sorry,
I'll
I'm
throw
gonna have to mute myself because there's echo from the Facebook Live. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Mayor Vico, there over the last few days, especially yesterday, we've seen local government officials reach out to state forces, law enforcers, to try and help them, they say, clamp down on those as described as pasaways or those who do not follow the quarantine rules. There was a very strong statement from the PNP police chief basically saying that they are going to continue and start arrests, and that possibly some will be detained for as long as 6 months. Now, the first guidance of President Duterte when he started the lockdown was for LGUs to craft your own policies, essentially. What is your take on the current security situation, and what would be your approach in Pasig?
Right. Our main challenge in Pasig is that our barangays are very different from each other. We have some areas that are affluent. There's or really no problem with peace and order, but we have other barangays that are very difficult to control. It's very challenging to keep people from the streets. We have areas that our peace and order officers go there, our PNP, our police make the rounds, and then everything is okay. And then 30 minutes after they leave, it's back to. We really need stricter measures in these areas, and we have been increasingly stricter as the situation calls for. But I have to admit, there are really some pockets in Pasig where it is very difficult to control, and we have been asking for the assistance of the police.
Okay. All right. Okay. We'll move on to asking questions from members of the foreign press. We'd like to allow the Bureau Chief of Associated Press, Mr. Jim Gomez. I'm going to unmute you, Jim, now. I think, or Barnaby, are you going to be doing that? I can do that too, right? No, I can't. Barnes, can you unmute Jim Gomez? There you go. Jim Gomez of Associated Press.
I can't find my recorder. Anyway, I'll ask just the same. Good morning, Mayor Vico.
Hi, good morning.
Yeah, Mayor, we'd like to understand how this amelioration assistance is working at the LGU level, because I think more than the deadly virus, we can really see possible deaths and extreme restiveness among the ranks of the underprivileged if they are locked down and they have no food in their homes. So as a city mayor, can you walk us through and give us a clear picture of how this financial rescue is playing out at the LGU level? No? How much money has been made available? And do you have a concern that indigent families are falling through the cracks of this massive dole-out?
Thank you for that question, Sir Jim. I think what we have to realize and what we as local governments need to realize is that and remind ourselves constantly that this crisis is not just the health crisis. Now, obviously, the health aspect of this crisis is the most important part. It's the part that needs the most attention so that we can address it, slow the spread of the coronavirus or COVID-19, and hopefully this whole thing ends already as soon as possible. But we can't also forget that this is also a socio-economic crisis. So there are two parts: yung sa health, and then with the socio-economic crisis, and the social amelioration program of the national government. We're very thankful for it. We also understand that this is not enough. So as a local government, we're stepping in, and whatever the national government, the families that the national government is not able to reach with the social amelioration program, because they were only able to approve 93,000 something families out of maybe 200 plus thousand families that need help and assistance during this time. So whatever the national government, whoever the national government will not be able to reach, the Pasig local government has its Pasig Supplemental Social Amelioration Program, or Pasig Supplemental SAP. So the assistance won't be as big as what the national government is giving in their SAP program. In the national government, it's 2 batches of 8,000, so 16,000 pesos per family for the 93,000 that were approved. But if we don't do our own program, this might cause social unrest. Families who don't receive the assistance will start flocking to barangays, and there will be stories of patronage and palakasan, as we say. So it's important for us to have this supplemental program, and for this supplemental program, all families who need the assistance will be given the said assistance.
So, Mayor, in your particular situation no, in Pasig City, how many people, how many families underprivileged could not be covered by the amount that was given by the national government, and what will you do with them?
Okay. First of all, the original listing that was used was a 2015 list with around 206,000 families. Now, that's 2015. Right now, our estimated number of families who are in need of assistance would be something like 250,000, well, above or more than 250,000. We don't know the exact number because unfortunately, before all of this happened, we were actually preparing for our city census already. If we were able to finish that, then we would have very specific data on what we need or about families in Pasig. Unfortunately, we were not able to do that. So our data is very rough. The data that we have is very raw and not detailed. So we estimate we have around 200, at least 250,000 families, probably close to 300,000 families. So subtract 93,000 from that, and that's the number of families that need help. So more than 150,000 families are not included with the national government or DSWD's SAP.
And my other second question is, what lessons have you learned from that tricycle debate? No, that was very famous incident in your city. What lessons have you learned from that, from the perspective of an LGU leader who was trying to respond to local realities, no, but was seen by higher ups as somebody defying national policy?
My stance is has remained the same. I had an opinion based on facts that I saw on the ground. I had a suggestion, I had a proposal, and if it was shut down, then that's okay. The national government has its own perspective. It can see the perspective. It can see all local government units at the same time. I see what I see here on the ground. So if a proposal of mine is not approved, the IATF says no, we have to have this uniform proposal for the entire NCR or the entire island of Luzon for that matter. Then as a mayor, I will abide by those guidelines. I don't take those things personally. I still think that our proposal had merit, or the observations that we had merit. But ultimately, we will comply with the guidelines in this time that policies should be uniform across LGUs here in Metro Manila, because we're basically one large community here in NCR.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Mayor. I think the next question will be coming from Jonna, also a member of FOCAP and also of the board. Barnes, could you unmute Jonna, please?
Hi, good morning, Mayor. Hello, can you hear me? Are you in favor or are you inclined to impose a full lockdown in Pasig? A lot of the residents there are discussing the possible shutdown of all establishments, including establishments that sell food. Is there any truth to that? Next question is, if you've received reports or are looking into reports.
Sorry, it's a bit noisy. I can't quite understand what you're saying.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, thanks. Are you in favor or are you inclined to impose a full lockdown in Pasig? Because people there are talking about the possible closure of all establishments, even those that are selling food. Next question is, have you heard of reports that there are barangays raffling out relief packs from the city government? One specific.
There are barangays that are
raffling relief packs that came
from the city government.
From the city government. One area mentioned was Ciudad Grande in Barangay Rosario.
They might be raffling their own relief packs, but not relief packs from the city. So sometimes there's a confusion between where the relief packs are coming from. But the city, we are the ones who handle the distribution of those relief packs or the grocery food packs. With regard to the question on full lockdown, definitely we will not we will not shut down establishments that are selling food and other necessary supplies. Mas magiging magulo yun. That will cause a lot of social unrest, and we can't have people starving in their homes. So yes, we will continue to be strict in terms of implementing the stay at home. If you're not doing anything important, if you're not buying food, you have to stay at home. And we've been ramping up security measures, increasing checkpoints, and doing other things to become stricter with this.
Okay. Are you good with that, Jonna? Next question, I think, will be coming from Barnaby. Is that you who messaged me? There's several hosts.
Yes. Hi, Mayor Vico. Good morning again. So a lot of questions revolving around the stricter implementation of the stay-at-home rule. And this does not just apply to Pasig, of course. It applies to the entire Metro Manila. But there has also been talk of a martial law type of enforcement. Would you describe what you're describing as stricter implementation as some type of martial law enforcement? Are you in favor of it? If you would describe it as a martial law type of enforcement, do you think that that's necessary?
It really depends what you mean specifically. I hear this term martial law type enforcement being thrown around, but sometimes what's being said is not actually what is being proposed, or we just like to throw the term martial law around. But in reality, first of all, here in Pasig, there has been no presence of military so far. If ever in the future the national government says, we will help you with military presence, I don't see anything wrong with that per se. It depends on what's actually going to happen. If it's to help us with enforcement of quarantine and getting people out of the streets, the tinatawag na tambay, or people who are loitering in the streets, then that is, we would actually welcome that. Because if you look at the situation in some areas where, again, after the round of the peace and order officers, Pasig is very big. We have over 800,000 people. Even if we have maybe 1,000 peace and order officers, that's not enough. That's a ratio of 1:800. We also have additional police. Again, we can't watch everyone 24/7. So if stricter measures and even military presence would come, not necessarily to make arrests or whatever, but just to show people that we're serious about this, then I think we should keep an open mind. Even if initially, of course, no one wants that, but again, this is not. I think we should be careful when we use the term martial law. Again, what does it really mean?
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, all right. I think Ellen Cruz of FOCAP also has a question. Could you?
Hello. Yeah. Yes. Good morning. Good morning, Mayor. My first question is about I saw a picture of some stranded construction workers in Ortigas, Pasig. Is there a big problem of that, though, that many construction workers who belong to projects that were stopped during the pandemic have been stranded? And what is the Pasig City government doing about this? How big is that problem? And then the other question is, do you favor lifting of lockdown after April 30, or you want a modified or a gradual lifting of lockdown? Thank you.
First of all, you mentioned the construction workers who are stranded. And yes, there are construction workers that are stranded, but I have to exhort everyone who may be watching right now to be very careful about what we share on social media. Number one, there are instances where what is shared is already outdated. So once, for example, the post about the construction workers that went viral. Actually, by the time that it went viral, we had already addressed the situation. The city government gave them 2 waves of relief goods. The barangay gave them 1 wave of relief goods. Through the effort of our city's congressman, they were also given sacks of rice. Private donors already gave them food. The employers had already been contacted, and the necessary measures had already been done. So again, by the time that the post went viral on social media, the problem had already been addressed. But because it went viral on social media, our hotlines were clogged. People were calling and reporting this to us. They were sending it to us through private message. All of our staff here, that we were bombarded with messages asking us to do something about this, when in fact the problem was already resolved. So I think we should really be careful about what we share on social media, especially when it is something that is very myopic or just very zoomed in on one specific problem, because it causes an imbalance in the way that we're able to carry out our policy. We're forced to, of course, if someone complains to us, someone reports to us, we have to answer them. So it causes an imbalance in the way that resources are spent. When we have 800,000 Pasigueños, a big majority of this needing help, either financially or some other form of help or social assistance. So again, let's all try to be careful about what we share. I discourage people from sharing those individual posts of people needing help, not because we don't want to help them, but because it causes an imbalance in the way resources are spent when we're trying to look at everyone who needs help. Now, on the question about a lockdown, we will really have to defer to the wisdom of the IATF, of the national government, because they're the ones who see the picture from the whole perspective. We see here in Pasig, it might be a little bit premature to lift the enhanced community quarantine. Parang sayang if we lift it now when there are still a high number of cases and an increasing number of cases every day. Then why did we do it why did we have that quarantine in the first place? So I think, of course, we need to balance it with the economy. The economy is taking a hit both nationally and locally. So we need to really do a balancing act. So even while we continue this quarantine, we should already start planning for economic stimulus packages. Here in Pasig, we're actually already planning for our local economic stimulus package for the tail end and until after the quarantine, to make sure that the impact is as minimal as possible.
All right. Are we good with that? I think Raul Dancel of the Straits Times has a question. Okay, Raul.
Good morning po, Mayor.
Morning.
Hi. Ang question ko lang is, how is the mass testing in Pasig coming along? And the numbers you have there, do they align with what the Department of Health is reporting every day?
Yes, we're reporting the same numbers, because if a person is positive on our end, we report it right away to the Department of Health. At the same time, if it's, let's say, from a DOH hospital or a private hospital, they report to the Department of Health, the information is given to us right away. So the numbers don't really vary. At the end of the day, we match our numbers, and we merge the reports. So there's no problem with that. But of course, we still have to be very careful about how we look at these numbers. For example, here in Pasig, we have 266 confirmed cases. Now, what does this really tell us when we haven't tested yet all of our persons under investigation, suspected or probable? We're just finishing our backlog now. So testing, that's the importance of testing, so we know exactly where we're at, and we arrest the situation as it is. But for Pasig, we've been ramping up testing the past several days. We've multiplied the number of tests by a large number. So what we're able to do now is we've combined with the resources that are available to us. We have partnerships not just with the public testing center, but also with the Medical City, which is a private hospital here in Pasig. So for PCR testing, we have around 30 to 50 tests per day. But we also use rapid testing. We are able to do 300 rapid tests per day. So all in all, we have around 350 tests per day, or somewhere between 2 and 3,000. The numbers vary depending on how many tests the medical city is able to accommodate. They have a minimum that they're able to give us every day, but sometimes they exceed that number. The rapid test depends on how many we're able to deploy, but 300 is the minimum number. So with this increased or ramped up testing in Pasig City, we'll be able to, number one, get a clearer picture of the actual COVID-19 situation and the actual COVID-19 numbers here in our city, but also we will be able to do contact tracing much better.
Okay.
Mayor, yung total number of tests ninyo, ilan na as of today from the
Total
time you
number
started testing?
I don't have the exact number of including those that were cleared. And you mean from the very beginning?
Yeah, I was just wondering ilan na Pasigueños ang na-test niyo dyan in total? Kasi in cases niyo is 200, right?
Our positive or confirmed cases is 266.
So ko lang malaman, Mayor, yung ratio ng na test
I'll
versus
number right now.
positive. Tapos, last question ko, Mayor, is do you think yung numbers justify yung mga draconian measures na being implemented by LGUs? Medyo
specifically,
well,
the lockdown.
Yeah, I mean, if we're seeing a low infection rate, right? Why are we seeing special action forces deployed in public markets, diba? And why are we seeing?
My take on that is that, of course, initially when you see this, we feel that grabe to, there's a draconian measure, etc., etc. But let's take a look. What are they actually doing? What are they actually doing in the markets? Are they doing something wrong, or are they just helping with the peace and order situation, or checking if people who are outside their homes are have a valid reason? So if we see that they're doing their jobs properly and they're not breaking any laws, they're helping with enforcement. Okay, a little bit of intimidation maybe, but what are they actually doing? Then there shouldn't be a problem with that. But of course, we have to watch carefully.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Raul. Just a question that was sent to me. Do you support the proposal of institutionalizing a national ID system?
Yes. Usually the people who are against the national ID system are concerned about privacy. But if we look at things like this crisis, then we really see the need. Like, for example, here in Pasig, as a mayor, the lack of data and the lack of the ability even to say that this is the number of Pasig residents, because we don't want to use voters registration as the basis. But unfortunately, that's the best way we can identify who's a Pasig resident right now. But I don't think that's right. That if you're a voter, you get benefits, but if you're not a voter, you don't get benefits. I don't think that's right. Some people have valid reasons why they were not able to vote, and they were delisted from the voters registration list. But that's the best, the most complete data set that we have when it comes to residents. Now, let's say we give benefits to everyone who is living in Pasig right now. We might have a situation that because the budget of Pasig City is a little bit higher than most other cities, what if by next year we have 2 million residents in Pasig because they want the benefits that Pasig gets? So it's very difficult to track individual people. It's very difficult to track even who are our residents. But if we have a national ID system, this really solves a lot of the problems that we have regarding this. Contact tracing will be much easier with the national ID system. I think a lot of the fear, as long as it's secure and it's encrypted properly, and all the necessary security measures are there shouldn't really be a problem with privacy in the national ID system. if we really have a issue with privacy, then we shouldn't Google, we shouldn't do all these things in the internet. Probably the data the data, personal data that we expose to the public, or to external sources, is much more in what we do on a regular daily basis, like even just Googling or Facebook for that matter. So I think a lot of the fear is misplaced, and I would really support a national ID system. It would make crisis management in situations like this much easier.
Great. Thank you for that answer. I just have also another question to ask you. We've seen reports of civilians getting arrested for their Facebook posts. I think we've seen that in Cebu. Several who have been, basically, what do you make of that? I mean, know that fake news is a concern, quote unquote, but what is really, how do you define as an LGU official, for example, you talked about disinformation. How do you as a local mayor define the difference between what is false, what is criticism, and what is satire? Because some people don't get satire, and it's very, very to associate fake news with a possible real news report. Tell us what your take is on that, and how would you approach that from within your city?
Well, I don't want to comment on other cities, no, but for here in Pasig, we have not filed any cases for this. We have not pursued any cyber libel case or any similar cases. But I think at some point we need to draw the line and say that, if the content is really malicious, then maybe we need to pursue further action. We need to file a case, a criminal case. There are certain instances here, even here in Pasig, that the posts on Facebook are really malicious. They're really trying to cause unrest or trying to confuse people about certain guidelines with the distribution of even the social amelioration program. Unfortunately, some people are still politicking. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of politics going on. I'm just talking about the local level. Hindi mawala-wala. This is very unfortunate. I wish we could just say, okay, guys, stop it, and then everyone would stop. But that doesn't happen. Here at the local level, there are certain individuals, certain groups who are still trying to capitalize on the situation politically. So eventually, I guess we will have to. But I've tried my best, or to be patient with this, respecting free speech. But I think at some point, if the intention is really malicious and trying to cause social unrest, and then it's already a threat to the peace and order situation, then we will have to take actions.
Great, thank you. Mikhail Flores of Agence France Presse, the French news agency, has a question.
Hi, good morning, Mayor. I just wanted to clarify a statement you made earlier. You mentioned that you think it may be premature to lift the enhanced community quarantine, at least in Pasig City, by April 30. How much time do you need to further to flatten the curve? So, are you, at least in your LGU, looking at an extension, and how long would that extension be?
I'd like to come out and say that, I know exactly how many days this will take, or this is the exact thing that we should do. But I think at this point, we have to be honest, and leaders like myself need to be honest and say that, we really don't know when we'll be able to totally flatten this curve. Although for Pasig, the good news is that our line is fairly straight, meaning to say it's not exponential. So every day, we've been seeing around 10 or so cases added to our confirmed number. But the question is it because the curve is flattening, or is it because we haven't tested enough? So I think before we even talk about lifting quarantine, we have to make sure that this mass testing is already up and running, and that at least the initial results, or the initial stages of this mass testing, is already been completed, so that we can make an informed decision of whether we should lift partially, completely, or not at all.
Mayor, just a quick follow-up to that. You mentioned that Pasig City now has around 350 tests a day, and I think Pasig, if I'm not mistaken, has a population of around 600 to 700,000
It's around 800
people.
plus. Yeah.
Uh, okay, 800,000. So, what's the ideal testing capacity that Pasig City should have in order for us to get an ideal picture of where the virus is?
Well, I won't put a ceiling to the number. Obviously, the more, the better. In a hypothetical situation where we could test every single person, that would be great. But right now, we have the combination of PCR and rapid testing, maybe 350 tests per day. I think this is a good number. It's a satisfactory number where we can start getting a clear picture, because our goal is to be able to test everyone who is a person under investigation. Suspected cases, probable cases, we're almost done. Maybe by today or at the latest tomorrow, we'll be done with the backlog. So we'll know if these are actually positive or not. And then next, we will test our health workers. That's ongoing right now, since they are the most exposed. And then our close contacts. We only have around 100 close contacts right now that are identified. So by the end of this week or early next week, we'll be done with that, and we can start testing high-risk sectors like those who are immunocompromised, those who are at highest risk, including frontliners, of course. What exact number, what exact percentage of the population should we test? I don't know, but the categories or the prioritization of our testing is very clear. And we'll get to, if it's a web, if contact tracing was a web, and we will start in the middle and then branch out as far as possible.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mika. The next question is coming from Mark Saludez of
Union of Hello?
Hi, good morning. Can
Yeah.
hear you.
Yeah, good morning, Mayor. Sorry, hindi pa ako naliligo kaya wala akong picture. Ah, ah, we have information na a group of medical health healthcare workers presented you a concept, yung tinawag nila na Project Heal. So, ang pinaka-concept niya is paglalagay ng field hospitals. Mayor, ano pong lagay na nito? Will you adapt it? Or ano po bang tingin nyo dito? Kailangan pa bang gawin ito ng Pasig?
Well, what we've been trying to do here in Pasig, in cooperation with the everyone from the national to the barangay governments, is to come up with a solid healthcare system or a healthcare network. That all the needs are there. So from testing to contact tracing, all the way to treatment, and to making sure that our hospitals have the highest possible capacity. So, for instance, we actually we have our own quarantine center. We have our own COVID-19 referral center. That's one of our hospitals we converted into a referral center. So we're taking a holistic approach and making sure that we have everything that we need per stage of all interventions in this COVID-19 crisis. What you mentioned specifically is actually a larger community quarantine facility. Now, right now, our quarantine facility is actually a motel that was converted into a quarantine facility. We are not yet full here, but we don't want to wait until our facilities are full before we start thinking ahead. So from the start, we have a phased plan. So we have this first quarantine facility, but we're looking to create a larger quarantine facility, and actually construction and the permits and everything that we need from the national government. We're already working on those as well. So we're trying to think always one, if not two or three steps ahead, so that before our facilities are at their capacity, we're already trying to increase the capacity of our public healthcare system, and also at the same time strengthening our network with the private hospitals and the private healthcare system. Basically, we just want to keep increasing our capacity, public and private combined, so that we're always a step ahead. ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you. Cliff Venzon, a member of FOCAP, also has a question.
Hi, Mayor. Good morning. I'm Cliff Benzon from Nikkei. Your city is home to some of the biggest companies in the Philippines, Meralco and JG Summit, the Gokongwei Group.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering if have you talked to them and what kind of concerns have they conveyed? Because the debate now has turned to the reopening of the economy after April 30.
Right. These big businesses, well, to give them credit, they've been very, should I say, low maintenance. They have not asked anything from the government. They have been very cooperative, and actually, they're the ones who are helping us. They've been giving, canned goods and other donations to the city for our constituents. And so we haven't really had much time to talk to them, but they've been very cooperative so far. And again, we have to start thinking, of course, about the economy, which has already taken a hit. And the longer we do this, obviously, the economy will take a bigger and bigger hit, not just nationally, but for us here at the local level as well. So it's really a tough balancing act. But as I mentioned earlier, we're already starting to plan our economic stimulus package here in Pasig as well.
And for just a second question, a follow-up question, Mayor. For medium enterprises, I'm just wondering if have you come across smaller or mid-sized enterprises that have sunk in deep financial distress or perhaps looking to file for bankruptcy, following this lockdown?
Right, we've tried to help them, excuse me, as much as we can. For example, payment of business taxes to the city and other obligations that they have to the city have been deferred without any interest, so they don't need to worry about that in the short term. So we've been trying to do everything that we can. And so, but we're very thankful to these business people and these businesses who have been very cooperative. And the vast majority of the business people that I've talked to have been very, very understanding, and they see that if we don't do this, then the economic impact will be greater. If the crisis goes out of control and the virus gets out of hand, it will be worse for everyone. So I think at this point, everyone understands why we're doing this enhanced community quarantine. Again, we're trying to help them as much as we can. We're planning on ways to help them even more. I can't announce yet right now because we're still in the planning stages. But as soon as we're able to lift the enhanced community quarantine, we will have an economic stimulus package in place here in Pasig City.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cliff. Moving forward, there's just a question. When we get past this pandemic, hopefully, what systematic measure would you put in place to cope better, if not prevent another pandemic or health crisis like this in your city? Is there anything you in the...
Well, there are a lot of things that come to mind, but number one would really be the data. Again, we were already planning for this before this pandemic happened, but unfortunately, we didn't have enough time. Our administration here in Pasig has only been here for less than a year. We've only been here for several months. So, supposed to be our city census or comprehensive survey was going to start April, and then be completed by May or June. If we finish this, and we will continue this after the lockdown or after the quarantine, what our goal here was to get specific or very detailed and comprehensive data and information about each household, each family in Pasig City. This would make dealing or management with a crisis like a pandemic much easier. Like, for example, contact tracing, finding people, relief operations would be much, much easier. So this is the first thing that we're going to continue after this crisis.
Great. Okay, last question from Dana before we allow, I think we have a few more minutes before we allow members of the local press to ask the questions before we close. Dana Batnag of the Straits Times.
Good morning. I'm Dana Batnag, the Straits Times. First, I wanted to follow up on Raul's question earlier. He was asking about the 266 that were positive. That's how many percent of the total number of people you've tested?
Mhm.
So ilang percent yung 266? How many have you tested? And that's what, 17, 18%, 15%?
We're getting the total number of those who have been tested right now. I think that was also a question earlier. We're getting the exact number.
Okay, and then the follow-up question to that is the demographics. Do you have an idea in what socioeconomic group the virus is moving? Are there more people infected among class A, B, C, D, E? Are they moving among the workers, the wherever?
Initially, it was really the upper class and upper middle class, because these were the people who had travel, who had traveled. So the first maybe 10 or 20 even cases were really upper class, upper middle class. But now with the local transmission and community transmission in the entire region, there are also members of CDE who have been infected. Thankfully, we've been able to, with proper contact tracing and proper quarantine, we've been able to somewhat contain this. But again, it's precisely the reason why we can't lift enhanced community quarantine yet.
So can it be said that tumataas yung infection ngayon dun sa lower classes? Is that the pattern that you're seeing?
Yes, the number of infections is still increasing. But again, I want to reiterate the good news that every day we've had a steady number. So around 10, at most maybe 15 cases per day are being added to our confirmed cases while we're testing in the hundreds already. So this is very good because that means that the line at most is a straight line. The danger would be if it was still exponential at this point. So that is good news. And then eventually we should see this number or this line being tapered off and then going down.
And then before, kasi you were saying you would like to test, right? So at what point, like when you have tested, at what point when you have tested, can you say when you have tested 1/4, 1/2 of the people you would want to test, that you would be comfortable with looking at lifting the lockdown? Kasi di ba yung WHO guidelines, dapat may mga test na, dapat ready na yung hospital system to take care of those who are still getting sick.
Yes.
The timeline that you're looking at now, okay, when we have 60%, we're going to look at lifting the lockdown. Do you have a formula?
No, it's not a percentage of the entire population that we're looking at, but we're looking at all 100% of suspected cases should be tested, 100% of probable cases should be tested, 100% of our health workers who have been exposed to the virus or in our hospitals should be tested, 100% of our frontliners should be tested, and 100% of our close contacts should be tested.
Okay. Will you be willing to lift the lockdown before you get to that 100%?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Medyo, hindi po
you were saying 100%. Will you be willing to lift the lockdown before you get to that 100%?
The community quarantine is a NCR wide, so the decision should be made at the same time for the whole NCR.
But if it's just up to you, of course.
No, I cannot make that decision because Pasig is in the middle of NCR. So if we have one city that lifts, it doesn't make any sense. Or one city cannot make the decision for the entire region.
Okay, well, last question na lang, Jam, sorry. Earlier,
I said last question so we can allow others also to ask questions, members of the local press, before we close.
Yes, thank you. Earlier you tweeted about the DSWD list. You said that when it was given to the LGU, they used only first names and there were no addresses given. Can you give more details about that?
The details about? Sorry,
Um,
your mic is not very clear.
Sorry, before yung DSWD list,
Right, the
nag-tweet kayo
DSWD
na
list.
when it was given to the LGU, first
Okay.
names lang ang nandun sa list and there were no
Ah,
addresses.
yeah, there were some details, that's a bit frustrating, but I understand they're also swamped with work. They're trying to do the best that they can. There are some minor details like that that are somewhat frustrating, but now is not the time to point fingers. So whatever they gave us, the list that they gave us, we'll do our best along with our barangay governments to just distribute the social amelioration program funds properly and as fast as we can, so that we can start with our supplemental SAP.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you. We'll allow the local press to ask a question. Christian Isguera of ABS-CBN.
Yes, I have 5 more minutes.
Yes.
Mayor, good morning. Christian po, ABS-CBN.
Hi.
How many of the 93,000 families in Pasig City have actually received their cash aid under the social amelioration program? Gano'ng karami na na-distribute mo?
We're almost at 50%.
50%. And then when can you complete it? Kasi baka mangyari, abutan na matapos na yung buong quarantine, hindi pa nakakatanggap yung mga pamilya.
Right. In less than a week, we'll be able to finish our distribution of the DSWD or National Government SAP. And then we will continue with the supplemental social amelioration program of Pasig City.
How about the next batch po? Di ba 2 months po yan? Kailan po yung distribution ng second batch?
Next month po.
Next month, and then you'll be able to complete that in how many days? Yung target.
The 93,000, it takes maybe a week or a little over a week. It's a big number.
Okay. I think we lost Christian. Sorry, last question, I guess. Christian, are you still there? Okay. We lost him. Mayor, if you will allow one last question from JC Gotinga of Rappler. I believe you know him. JC, hold on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, Mayor Vico. Sir, question lang po. How long do you think can the local government, your team, City Hall, go on like this? Are you beginning to feel the strain? And what if the pandemic lasts a year or until the middle of next year? Kaya pa po ba ng local government? What would be measures if, for example, you begin to feel the strain yourselves?
Well, we're all, I think I speak for all LGUs probably when we say that we're tired, we're also stressed, but we just have to keep on going. At this point, we don't have a choice. So whether we're tired or stressed or not, it doesn't matter. We just keep working, keep doing our best to slow down this COVID-19 or this virus, and hopefully, if we all do our best and we all help each other, then this will end sooner rather than later.
Are we good with that, JC?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Jam.
And
Okay,
on that, we'd like to thank everyone. Mayor, thank you for taking the time to speak to FOCAP and to members of the local press. This forum is recorded. It's live on Facebook of the Foreign Correspondents Association of the Philippines Facebook page, and we have also recorded it. So if you guys want a copy, we will send it to you. So just message me and Barnes. Again, salamat po ulit, Mayor. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, and I hope we'll have another one with you soon.
All right,
you,
no
Mayor.
problem. Maraming salamat po.
Mayor, if you can also, I don't know if you can see the group chat. Maybe someone from your team can look at it. There are other questions on the group chat that you may want to address or, at another time. Yeah. So, yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Mayor.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're done. Thank you guys. Thank you. Salamat uli.
Salamat. Thank you.
Thank you. Yung recorded, maayos ni Barnes mamaya. Kasi hindi ako marunong mag-record.
Stop ko na yung Facebook